Vignesh, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the last session for Hawaii Blockchain Summit 2021, and I'm so glad to welcome our last speaker, Rahat Chowdhury. So Rahat is an Ethereum developer and co-founder at Whimser, and he has extensive experience in blockchain development, and will now be holding a beginner-friendly hands-on session to deploy an SSO app using the Ethereum smart contract. Over to you, Rahat.
Hey all, how are you? My name's Rahat, and yeah, like was mentioned, we're going to be doing a little bit of a workshop. We've got some slides going first, so we're just going to go through those a little bit before we dive into some code. I would really encourage you throughout this workshop, if you have questions, if you want me to repeat anything, show some code again, drop a comment. I am happy to do so. I encourage it. It's going to be like a lot of stuff that we're going over. Some of it might be pretty new, some of it might be confusing. So I want to make sure you all get kind of the best experience out of it as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and share some slides. Okay. So this is all about Ethereum SSO. One thing is we're not going to be sort of like creating a full-on dApp or decentralized application. We're really going to be focusing on like the authentication part and implementation of like an SSO system using Ethereum, using wallets and everything. So this is really just going to be that implementation and just making sure that you have what you need to add this type of functionality to your own decentralized applications and deploy that wherever you want. So a little bit more about me, just so you know who's going to be talking at you for the next hour and a half or so. Like I mentioned, I'm Rahat. I am a founder of a company called Whimser. We deal a lot in like mental health awareness. I do a lot of different startups, micro SaaSes. Most of them fail, but that's how you learn. So it's all a bunch of fun stuff that I enjoy doing. These are some places you can follow me. I have been doing blockchain work or just like diving into blockchain for about a couple of years. But I didn't really take it seriously until this year, and about January is when I really decided that, I want to maybe transition full-time into blockchain development. And I'm still working on that. I'm still like a front-end developer at a Web2 company during my day job, but I've been doing a lot of these types of things, or like talks, blog posts, and sharing my knowledge as I've been learning it as well. And it's one of the best ways I feel to really learn in this space is as you're learning it, try to explain and teaching it to other people. So here's our menu for today, what we're going to be doing. First off, we're going to be talking about sort of like the user experience of authentication, why it kind of sucks. It's kind of trash when you go around to different websites and you have to like remember a bunch of stuff to log in. We're going to talk about one method of solving it. The method that I'm going to be showing you today is not the only way to do this. There are other ways. But we're going to go through an example of that implementation through actually coding it out as well. So let's talk about connecting with a wallet. So what exactly is a wallet? I'm sure many of you all know. A common wallet that a lot of people use, I use, is MetaMask. It's great to use in the browser. That's what we're going to be kind of focusing on in our application today, of like implementing something that works well with MetaMask. But if we think about wallets, we need our wallets like anyway to interact with our dApps, right? They're just going to be a part of the ecosystem. So how can we leverage the infrastructure that already exists, the different methods and patterns for like securing a login, to actually create something that gives a positive user experience for people when they need to log in or authenticate to use an application? So what the result of what we're going to be doing is creating that single sign-on experience, like a true single sign-on experience that's based on your wallet's public address. So let's look at this little user journey map I created. So how is this journey going to actually work? A user is going to click connect wallet. I'm sure if you've used like a dApp before, if you've used any type of Web3 application, you've done this. You've gone and connected your wallet. And that is essentially logging in with Ethereum, right? That's how it works. That's how you're going to create your account. What's going to happen on the back end is that we're going to be checking the existence of this address. Like, does this address already exist? Is there someone who's already using this? We're going to generate what's called a nonce, or a number that's only used once. And we're going to take that nonce, send it back over to the front end, have the user sign the nonce, send that back to the back end. The back end is going to validate our signature. And then we can do a couple things. We can send like a JWT or a cookie to the front end, signifying that this person can log in and has a valid session. We're not going to be implementing the full JWT method because, again, for this workshop, I'm simplifying a lot of things just to give you an introduction to a lot of these concepts. So we're going to be focusing more on like the Ethereum implementation. Awesome. So I wanted to keep those slides minimal. So those are all the slides I've got for you for today. Now we're going to do some code. So here's a code base. There should be a link if you want to clone this yourself and follow along. You can do so. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of a brief overview of, what is in here, what is our starting point for this experiment. So this application was scaffolded using Create Next App. So Next.js is a React framework. Everything that we're going to be doing can be done in regular React, or most of it. Anything that's like Next specific, I will point out. If you're not familiar with the React or Next ecosystem, I will do my best to like explain it as I go along. So hopefully it won't be too confusing. And we're going to essentially have this main page over here, which brings in like our connect wallet function, our connect wallet component, which is up here. And it's basically just a button. It's going to be a button, which when we implement it. A button that you click, and it essentially just helps you to, connect to our backend and create a user account. The cool thing with Next.js is that you get these serverless API routes. So our backend is really just going to be right here. We have an API that we're going to build out to authenticate and verify the user. Reason I use Next.js, it's, quick and easy to spin up like almost a full stack application just using a front-end framework. So the things, again, that we're going to be working on is in the API, the auth and verify.js, as well as the component index.js for Connect. One other thing to kind of keep in mind, we're going to be building out some functionality to help us make API requests to the backend. That's all going to go inside of this API requests file right here. And we're not going to be using like a traditional database. Like I said, I don't want to get too bogged down in a lot of the details that don't completely matter. So you'll be able to take this implementation and use whatever database you want in the backend. I'm just going to be showing you how to create some user accounts using just like a regular, JavaScript function or whatever. So this will be like backend agnostic. You can take this, plug and play in your own backend, whatever you're comfortable with afterwards. Cool. So let's get started with the component itself. So we're bringing in this connect button, but there's no actual connect button yet. So let me go ahead and start implementing that. Just going to import React from React. I don't think you need to do this anymore in the current versions of React, but I kind of do it out of habit. So we'll do that. We'll call this component connect wallet. And like I said, it's just going to be a button. So it's just going to return this button, HTML. I'm going to wrap it around a div and put a button in there. I've already got some like pre-written styles. I don't want to, focus too much on styling a component. That's not what this is about. So I'm going to import some styles that I've written. So import styles from button.module.css. I'm using CSS module so I can bring in the CSS kind of like a JavaScript object. And what we can do is I've got some styles already for like a container. So styles.container. Again, this part, not really important. It's just adding some little bit of styling just to make it look somewhat pleasant to look at. I'm not a designer, so I did my best. So hopefully it doesn't look too horrible. And we've got another one here for styles.button. If you're interested in looking at it later, these are all defined in here. We've got a button and a container. There's nothing fancy going on around here, just a really simple button. Cool. So if you've already gotten this repo and you're coding along, which you don't have to do, you can, take a look at what I'm doing and try it out later yourself, which is all cool. Let me export default that. Make sure that if you did grab this just to run like an npm install, I've already got it installed, so I'm not going to do it, but that's like doing something like that, npm install. If you want to actually run the app itself, you just do npm run dev. I'm going to add like this --p port just because I want to run this on a different port. You do not have to do this. I'm running it on a different port because I've been messing around with it a lot. And as a developer, we're all lazy. I don't feel like clearing my cache. So I'm just putting it on a new port, which makes life a little bit easier. So I'm going to run this on port 3014. If you just do npm run dev, it will probably run on port 3000. Cool. So let's actually get that running. What port was that again? 3014. Cool. So if we head to 3014, this is all you should see. If you see this, this is perfect. You are on the right track. Right now, nothing happens if we click connect wallet. But we're gonna change that very soon. So first thing we want to do is hopefully if you're doing this, you've got like a wallet set up. I'm using MetaMask, like I said. So this workshop is geared towards using MetaMask. So I highly recommend that you have that when you're going through this. You can just look up like MetaMask in like the Chrome DevTools marketplace and install that, make an account. Not like a difficult thing to do. So when you do have MetaMask installed as a tool, what happens is that it injects some information into your browser window, right? So we're going to be leveraging some of that right now. I'm going to create a function inside of my Connect wallet, and we're just going to call that function handle off. Nothing too bad. So this function is going to be what's called an asynchronous function, which means basically it's going to be calling some external API. It's going to need to wait for some information to come back. So that async keyword allows us to actually wait for some external information to be resolved. So in here, I'm going to do something that might be a little bit weird if you're not too familiar with JavaScript, but I'm going to grab Ethereum and pull it out of the window. What does that mean? What did I just do? So this syntax is called destructuring. Like I mentioned before, when you're using MetaMask, it injects some data into your browser. So we're just grabbing that data right now. It injects a object called Ethereum into your browser window. So this is called destructuring. So instead of me going like window.ethereum like 100 different times in different places, I'm just grabbing Ethereum out of the window so I can just use Ethereum directly instead of saying window.ethereum. One thing to make sure you're doing if you're coding along, make sure this line of code is inside of your handle auth function, because if it's outside of it, which I learned the hard way, Next.js doesn't know that there is a window when it first builds, because everything is done like server side. It's an awesome way to like create faster applications and user experiences. But a couple things you got to remember: window in the browser does not exist on the server side. So make sure this is inside of a function. Now, what we're going to do next is just make sure that this Ethereum object actually exists. So we just do that with like an if statement, if Ethereum. We're going to do stuff. For now, I'm just going to say console log. Yay, wallet exists. And else, we're just going to say console log, no wallet detected. Cool. So the first thing that you're going to really need to do is make sure we're calling this handle off. So we're going to pass it to this button over here. We're going to say on click. What can happen during on click? We want to run handle off. Cool. So let's take a look at what happens now. I'm going to bring up my inspector in my console, hit connect wallet. Yay, wallet exists because it knows that I've got MetaMask in here. And if you go in here and type in Ethereum, you'll actually be able to see the Ethereum object. It's a bunch of maps and stuff in here that might not 100% make sense. You can check out the Ethereum developer documentation just to get more information on that. But at least right now, our code knows that there is an Ethereum object in existence. Great. How can we leverage it? What can we do with it? The main thing we're going to do with it right now is just grab the user's public address. So public address is just your address over here, this account number. We're going to go ahead and grab that. So how do we do that? Again, this is all stuff that I am pulling out of the Ethereum documentation. This next part, I'm going to copy and paste from my cheat sheet because I am probably going to not spell it correctly. So just to avoid that possibility, we're going to do this. And I'll explain what this does. So I'm creating this account variable. And you'll see this await keyword goes hand in hand with the async keyword. I'm awaiting some async functionality that's happening. In this case, that functionality is, I don't need this window because, like I said, I destructured Ethereum out of window. So Ethereum.request. Request is one of these methods that you get from that Ethereum object. And you can pass it this object with different options. The option that we're passing in is this method, which is called ETH request accounts. What this does is when you make this request, you're going to get back an array of a bunch of different wallet addresses that the person may or may not have. This is cool, but we're actually only interested in the very first account that is returned in here. So we want to save that somewhere. We're going to use a React hook to help us do that. It is the use state hook to keep track of some state, which is going to hold our account. So to use that hook, we do something like this. We can initiate a variable. We'll call that account. So this is going to be like our state variable, where our state is actually held. And we need a function that actually sets that. So we can do set account. And then that equals this use state. And initially, the state is just going to be an empty string. We don't know what's going on. We're going to update that empty string to be whatever the address is of the person who is connecting to our website. So like I mentioned before, we only care about the very first account in the array, because whatever that first account is going to be the preferred account of that person, right? So we're going to do set account. Cool thing is React gives you all the functionality out of the box of setting your state. So all we got to do is take this set account and pass in accounts and the first index of that account. So this is going to take our account and save it into state. Let's make sure that works. I'm going to go down here and put in a console.log accounts. Make sure this works properly. Oh, use state is not defined because I spelled it incorrectly. See, this is why I copy and pasted this before, because I knew I was going to spell this wrong. Use state. There we go. Awesome. So now if I click connect wallet, boom, what happens is I got MetaMask to pop up because I requested access to the user's MetaMask account. So I can just say next, connect. This essentially gives permission to the website to access your account details. And you'll see that I am now console logging out this address, and we can verify that indeed it is my address. It starts with OX3, ends with BDFD, OX3, BDFD. Awesome. Correct wallet. We are making some progress, getting ready to create our single sign-on. So we now have access to the user's actual account. This is their public address, available, as the name suggests, to the public. This is not anything private. So the next thing we want to do is bring in some help. We don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time. I have a library installed on this app called Ethers. So we're going to import Ethers. From Ethers. As you can see, I am very bad at spelling. So we're importing Ethers. And Ethers is a library that gives us a lot of cool functionality. You can pass it like that Ethereum object, and it gives you like some easy functionality to be able to interact with the blockchain using that specific person's account, get some information about their account, do things like signing, which is going to be important very shortly. But let's get that set up so we can set ourselves up for success. Again, I am going to copy this next part over because I don't want to spell it incorrectly. So what did I just do? I created what's called a provider. A provider is going to be taking in this Ethereum object that we had up here that we grabbed from the window. Basically, this is giving Ethers the information it needs to help process whatever functionality you need to do within your application. So making sure that we have access to the proper account, can interact with it. This provider gives us all of that functionality. Recommend checking out the Ethers documentation to go through and discover more about this. So we've got this here, provider. We also need the signer. Signer is the person who is going to be, of course, signing and interacting with our app. So we could do something like const signer equals provider dot get signer. We're going to leave this here for a bit and come back to this soon. What I want to do for a second is start building out our backend so that this part can actually interact with it, because none of this matters if we don't have a backend to actually send this to. So remember, like I said, inside of Pages, we have this API folder. Next.js is super cool, where like if you have this folder structure set up, if you hit like, you can make a request to like /API/auth, and you basically just have an API right there. Like you can make requests and everything, and it's all good. So let's start off with the auth. I want to make a bunch of user accounts, right? So how do I make those user accounts? Normally, I'd probably have some sort of database, SQL database, NoSQL, whatever you're into. I don't really want to deal with that during this workshop. It's going to make this workshop excessively long. So we're just going to, in our utility folder, in users.js, create like a pseudo database or model of a database. We're going to make a constructor function. So we're going to say something like export function user. User is going to take in an address. And we're just going to say this dot address equals address. And this dot nonce, very important, is math.floor. And I'm going to explain this in a second. Math.floor, math.random. This is not the best way to make a random number, but just for the sake of this, I'm going to just make this a really big number. Doesn't matter what that is. And we're also going to have an array of users. This is my quick and dirty, super simple database and model. So what's happening here? I have this function called user. It's a constructor function that takes in an address. All that's happening is that this function is going to return to you an object with an address and a nonce. The address we're going to actually supply, which is what we grabbed over here. This account, which we already have access to, which is great. And we're going to generate a nonce right when we create this user object. So like I mentioned in my slides before, what does nonce mean? Nonce is a number that's only used once. It is a common pattern you'll see in like these cryptographical validations and things like that. And we're going to use this to sign our authentication request for some like added level of security. And we're going to go into that in a second and really take a look at that. So we have our nonce and our address being made. We have a users array. Let's head back to, so like I said, this is our database. You can change this, rip it out, put a real database in here. It'll work just fine. Whatever you're more comfortable with. This is just for the purpose of this workshop. So let's go into the API and our auth.js. And what we need to do in this case now is actually bring in that function that we just created. So let me see. Okay. So I'm going to import user and users. Remember, we had the user constructor function and the array. And that's going to come from, I think it's two directories out. Yes, utils/users. Okay, so what I'm doing right here is just like some Next.js stuff. You export default a function called handler. It's going to take a request and result. So if you're familiar with backend development, node development, this might be a little bit familiar. We're literally creating like a backend right here, and getting access to our request and result from like that can be accessed from like an HTTP request made to this route. The cool thing again about Next.js is like you don't have to worry about routing. Routing is all done for you. All you got to do is like name these files in these folders properly, and everything else is done for you. So let's say inside of our auth, what we want to do is let's just make sure it works properly first. So let's do something like console log. So let's say user address equals request dot query. I'm going to explain this in a second. Dot address. Cool. So what is this request dot query? So Next gives you a couple things that are kind of baked into the functionality. We can add some query params to our HTTP request, pass it some information, and access that information right here. So what I'm going to do from the front end, I'm going to take that address that we just grabbed, and I'm going to log it out on the server side. So once we have the address, I'm just going to console log the user address just to make sure we have it, on the back end. And I'm going to send a res.status of 200, which just means everything's okay. And there's going to be a JSON. We'll just say something like status success. Nothing too bad for now. So it's very important that you structure this way. It's a handler that you export in this manner. This is how Next.js knows that this needs to become like a serverless function for the API. Cool. So now I want to make sure that we can actually send our address to the backend so we can do all of our verification once we need to. So I'm going to, again, in our utils, in API requests, start building out a helper function to help us do that. We're going to call this auth request. So we'll say export const auth request. This is also going to be an async function. Whenever we hit some external API, it's always going to be asynchronous. And so we are going to be using that. It's going to take an address. I'm going to say const response equals await, and we're going to use the fetch API, and we're just going to make a call to /API/auth. So how do I know that's where I want to go? Because in my pages folder, I have a folder called API and a file called auth. That's literally how routing works in here. It's one of the most magical things ever about Next.js. So what we're going to do is add a query parameter and say address equals the address up here. We're going to pass that down into the query parameter. That is what will help us actually get access to the address from the query in the request over here. So we have that. We'll just take that response, get the data out of it. So const data equals await response JSON. This is just like a pattern for getting the data. And we'll console.log out the data. Make sure that there's information going back and forth between the front end and the back end. Console.log data. So right now, what am I expecting to happen? When I hit connect button, I should take the address, and in my backend, I should now have access to the address. Ooh. And in the front end, I should get a status called success. See if that happens. So here's my front end. I hit connect wallet. What did I forget to do? What I probably forgot to do is actually use this auth request function inside of my button. Make sure you do that. Let's import that in here. So we're going to go from, I believe that is in details. There we go. API requests. And what did I name it? Auth request. Always make sure you call the functions that you expect to work. Cool. Auth request. Where do we want that? We want that in here. We're going to say auth request. Get rid of this console log. We don't need that anymore. And auth request is going to take this account, which is the address. Cool. Now it should work. So hit connect wallet. Awesome. We got a status of success, which means we're talking to the backend. Now let's check our server, which is running over here. And yeah, on the server side, we now have access to our account. Perfect. Now we're talking from the front end to the back end. We've got a bunch of things happening there. We have access on our back end now to the address. Making some progress. So going back to our back end, what we need to do now is utilize this database that we built and check if this user already exists inside of this array. And if it does not, make sure we create it. So what we're going to do, we already know it doesn't exist because there's no users in here, but in the future, we might have some users. So what we need to do, I'm going to get rid of this stuff for now. I'm going to create this let user info. I'm using let here because this variable might change in the future. I'm just going to copy and paste this and ship it to you. In the interest of time. Cool. So what we have right now is I'm going into this users array that I built over here, which is just an empty array right now. And I'm filtering out for a user that has the address that is in that request.query, that address, which is basically, this address over here. And basically removing any user that does not have that address and focusing only on that one user. So I should get back a new array with just one user account inside of it. If I do not get back an array with if I get back an array with nothing inside of it, that means I got to create a user. So let's write that in there for now. So if user info dot length equals 0 means nothing in the array. We're going to make a new user. So const new user equals new user. So that constructor function up here that I brought in, which is going to take request.query.address. And again, make sure you spell things correctly. Cool. So we've got our new user, and we're just going to push that user into our array. So users.push new user. And remember, I used that let function over here because we're going to run this again and basically make sure we have that initial, user account. And now, instead of doing this status of success, I am just going to send in user info and the first index of it. So what we're expecting is that there should just be, one account with that one address. So just giving that one account should be good enough. Again, this code might change a little bit if you're using a slightly different backend database, but the concept should be just about the same. Cool. So let's make sure that works. Let's make sure we're getting our user account coming back. In theory, this should work because the console log worked, but things have a way of not working sometimes. Awesome. So we'll see now we're getting an address and a nonce, which was that randomly generated number. So we've got two very important things, two very important pieces of information that are going to help us do some verification. So just to recap what we've got so far, we're able to interact with our backend. We're able to create a new user account whenever one does not exist. And we're able to access the address as well as this randomly generated number, which is a nonce, which we're going to use right now to help us start doing some verification. So coming back to the component itself. Whoa. Okay. In the component, you'll remember we've got the signer, right? I want to pass the signer to the auth request as well. Why did I do that? First off, I got to make sure this is expecting a signer. So signer gives you information about the person that is interacting with your site, right? So what information do we need from them? Let's see. What we want to happen now is we need to verify that this person is who they say they are. So I'm going to create another function up here. I'm just going to call it verify request. What that verify request is going to take, it's also going to be an async function. It's going to take an address. It's going to take a signature, which we're going to get from the signer in just a little bit. It's going to take the nonce. And what's it going to do? I'm going to copy and paste this because, again, this is a very long string that I don't want to screw up. What did I just paste in there? So this is kind of like just more complex version of this, right? So now I'm just hitting the API/verify, and instead of just giving it an address, I'm giving it three things. an address, a signature, and a nonce. So I'm going to, after grabbing that stuff, do the same kind of thing. Const data equals await response.json. Make sure we're getting like our JSON data, and I'm just going to console log out that data. Right now, that doesn't actually exist anywhere, but we need to make that exist. Inside of this function is where I'm going to use this verify request, but I need to actually get, I have an address and I have a nonce. I don't yet have a signature. So how do I get a signature? Let's create that signature right here. So const signature equals await signer, which was that signer thing that I passed into this sign message. And again, this is all in the Ethers documentation. You can check that out for where I got that, but I'm going to do some explaining of what this is. This function, as you can see from this little helpful pop-up over here from VS Code, is expecting a string. So let's give it a string, and we're going to give it the nonce. The data.nonce, when it comes in as a number. So this is just like a quick and dirty way of converting it to a string. You can also do like number.toString or whatever floats your boat. But I like doing it this way. It makes more sense to me. Cool. So we get that signature this way, and let's hit the verify request and give it all the stuff that it needs. It needs our address, which we already have up here. It needs our nonce, which is in our data. Ooh, before it needs our nonce, it needs our signature, which we defined up here. And that's it. So let me go into that verify function. Nothing's actually happening in here yet. I'm going to copy and paste this stuff and rip out this and give this like a status of success again. Just to make sure it works. So similar to when we were testing out the auth function, I'm just going to console log out the information, make sure we're getting everything that we expect. So let's do console.log request.query. Okay. So I shouldn't have to import anything else because I'm using that verify request inside of auth request, which is already in my component. But let's see what happens with that signature. What did I actually do when I was trying to get that signature? Let's see. So now when I hit connect wallet, I get another pop-up from MetaMask, and you'll see this message has a number which looks suspiciously like a nonce, right? We generated a nonce on the back end. It's now inside of this message inside of MetaMask, right? So if I hit sign, ooh, API verify 500 internal server. What happened? A space that should not have been in there. I believe that is the issue. Sign, unexpected token. What is up? Let's see. I was doing so well. No. Am I making the right call? API verify, yeah. That looks correct. Let me make sure this data is what I think it is. Console.log, all that stuff. There might be something else I missed. Live debugging is like one of the most stressful things in the world. So let's hit connect wallet. Okay, still getting that error, but I can see I'm getting my address, which is good. I'm getting a nonce. I'm also getting a signature, which is basically like another cryptographical hash that is combined with the taking a combination of your address and the nonce and creating this new hash over here. So that information is all correct. It is what I'm expecting it to be, but this is not working. Why not? Gosh. Let's look at my cheat sheet. Seems correct. All right, it's a little bit of a spoiler alert. Ah, no, that's not it. All right. So I'm going to copy this into here and just remove some stuff. Oh, I think I know what's wrong. I know what's wrong. Success should be a string. There is no variable named success. I really wish it just gave me that error, but it did not. So it's okay. But it should work now. Or did it give me that error and I just didn't look in the right place? That's, yeah, success is not defined. There it is. All right. Connect wallet. Sign again. Status of success. Wonderful. And yes, we now have an address, signature, and a nonce in the backend. Always make sure that you look in all the places when you're debugging. We have both the front end and back end. I was only debugging in the front end. So wonderful. We figured that out after that hiccup. But now we're sending all of the information that we need to verify that this person is who they say they are. How do we do that? So to do that, let's go over really quickly what a block on a blockchain is. So this little visual demo, it's on andersbrownworth.com/blockchain. It gives you like a little bit of a way to see how like blocks are mined on the blockchain. Really cool. So this block here has a nonce, has some data, and then it has this like little hash right over here. Very similar to the information that we already have, if you think about it, because in our case, we have an address. This signature here is that hash, and we have a nonce. In my data, in this data here, I can type in whatever I want. I can say Rahat is cool. Right now it's red because it doesn't think I'm cool. Because you'll know, because we changed this bit of data, the nonce is also supposed to change, right? Because this hash changed. This hash is made up of the data that's in here as well as the nonce. So we got to remine this. It's mine. And now the nonce is a different nonce number It's green again, which means I'm cool. And that's basically kind of what we need to happen on our backend. We need to make sure that the nonce that is used, as well as the data that we received together, maps to this hash number that is basically representative of that data, right? How do we do that? We don't really need to know too much how to do that because thankfully ethers have already figured it out for us. I love these different tools because as a front-end developer, I'm not like an expert in the low-level code that goes into like how some of this stuff works. And that's okay. You can still build on top of it. That's why there's different types of developers, folks like me who are more on the front end, who like tinkering and building with stuff. And this is really just to give you a little bit of a introduction to these concepts anyway. So how do we kind of emulate what we just saw on that demo in our backend? So I'm going to, inside of my verify, oh, I did not do that. I don't think I need this. I might need this later. Let me import ethers from ethers. Another awesome thing about Next.js is whatever you install on your front end is also accessible on your back end. I'm going to import ethers from ethers. That's going to come in handy in just a second. I'm going to declare this variable called authenticated. And we're just going to say it's false. So by default, it's false. You're not authenticated, right? You can't just go into a website without authenticating and log in, right? We're going to need the 3 pieces of data that we're sending from the front end. So I'm going to destructure it out the same way I did on the front end. So I'm going to take it out of request.query. There's a bunch of stuff in here. What was all that stuff? That was the address, the signature, and the nonce. So I'm going to take out the address, signature, and nonce. I have access to all that information now. Now I want to basically decode the hash from the signature and make sure that the person who I expected to sign this actually signed it. So I can do that by using a utility function provided to us by ethers. So we're going to declare a new variable called decoded address. We're going to say ethers.utils.verified message. Verify message is looking for 2 arguments. It is a message, which is a string, and as well as a signature. So in our case, the message is just our nonce. And we provided that nonce first. And I'm also going to provide that signature. See what happens. I'm going to console log out the decoded address. If we did this correctly, what should happen is that when I decode this address, it should be the same thing as this address. So let's see if that works out the way I hope it does. I hit connect wallet, do another little signature. Cool, status was successful. Let's look at the back end. And yeah, if you check this out, this address is the same as this address, just in capital letters, but we can fix that. But we have just decoded this cryptographical hash and verified that the person with this address is the person who actually signed this. This is the basis of like the authentication system for our single sign-on. So, like I said, it is in like capitalized. What we can do is just convert that to lowercase. So what I want to do, if the address that we got from the front end equals our decoded address that we decoded from the signature and the nonce dot to lowercase. So this is just a string method given to us by JavaScript. This takes a string and any capital letters in it will just be turned into lowercase. And when that happens, we're going to take authenticated and set it equal to true. And I once again did not spell correctly. So we don't need to console log this out anymore. Instead of the status of success, I'm just going to say pass authenticated down in here. Oh. So like I had mentioned before from like my slides, at this point, you would probably want to actually create like some sort of JWT, JSON web token, or like inject some type of cookie into the front end, to actually have an authorized session to verify that this person is logged in. Again, just for the purposes of this workshop, trying to focus on just the single sign-on experience. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to send in like a true or false statement, and we can just log in based on that. This is not the proper way to do this. This is just for educational purposes. Make sure you're using some type of JSON web token or just some type of authentication with a cookie or something like that. But that is outside the scope of this workshop. And for the interest of time, we're just going to have a flag, basically, true or false. Cool. So we're going to send that. Let's make sure that works. Connect wallet. Sign. Authenticated is true. Nice. So just a quick recap of what we just did right there. We grabbed the address, which was given to us by MetaMask, right? We grabbed this nonce, which was given to us by the backend. When we hit connect wallet, we create this signature, right? What happens with the signature is we take that nonce, we take our address, a bunch of complex cryptographic calculations happen, we sign, and we get this large signature hash. That signature hash gets sent to the backend. The backend takes that signature, decodes it, makes sure that the person you expected to sign this actually signed it, which is similar to what this blockchain demo here is doing, of making sure that a nonce and the data and the hash all correspond to one another. So now we have a very secure single sign-on experience using an Ethereum wallet. So what can I do with this? Now I can, based on this authenticated flag, show some other content in here. Maybe I want to show them a form to like add some data to some backend or whatever. Doesn't matter. At this point, you can build whatever you want. I'm just going to like show like the address maybe. So let's go into our request button and oops, there we go. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to have like another piece of state here. It's just say logged in, set logged in, and by default, it's going to be false. And we're going to pass the set logged in down into the auth request. Our auth request. And what we want to do is basically let's pass it down to verify as well. That way, like after verification, we can set the actual logged in. So we're getting back this data, which has the success, true or not. What was that called? Authenticated, true. Okay. And we're going to do set logged in. Data.authenticated. So we're just passing that true or false Boolean into the set logged in. So now up here inside of this logged in should basically change to false once that verification is done correctly. And we're just going to say put in a paragraph here, nothing too fancy. You are logged in as account. And that should only show if logged in is true. So logged in, double ampersand. Okay. Let's verify that that worked. Connect wallet, sign. Authenticated is false. What? We're not getting an address for some reason. Why not? There we go. Okay. Not sure what happened in the beginning, but we are now getting an address. I am logged in as this address right here, which is awesome. This is kind of like the basics of it. You can use this to create some cool dApps, have a true like single sign-on experience. Like all I did was just connect my wallet, and now I have a user account on this website, right? I don't have to give anybody my email. I don't have to give any large corporation access to my, social media accounts or whatever, like logging in with Facebook, logging in with Google or whatever. Because what if we have a situation like we had like a couple of weeks ago where Facebook was down for however long, and if my option was to log in with Facebook, I'm out of luck. I couldn't log in. But this is all just based on a wallet that you own, that you have, that you can take around with you to different Web3 applications, blockchain applications. And basically, this becomes your identity, right? It's how you authenticate, how you log in. This is what is attached to you. And honestly, I feel like this is one of the big, like, most awesome things about the Web3 space, of just making this type of user experience so much easier and cleaner. Because although we had to do like a lot of coding in the background, and maybe it might make our life a little easier, the user experience for your customer, for your user at the end of the day, is what matters the most. And if all they have to do is just click a button and now they have an account, then I can't see a much better user experience than that. So with the remaining time, I am happy to answer any questions you may have. If you want me to go over anything, any part of the code again, or explain any parts of it again, happy to do so. But that was building a single sign-on experience with Ethereum. Hope y'all enjoyed it.
Hey Rahat, thank you so much. I think this was an absolutely cool session. I think, firstly for me, this was the first time I was exposed to Next.js, and yeah, this was super cool. Sort of a thing. Like, knowing that there's something for serverless APIs. That's actually super awesome. So I guess, we have our note from Whimser who says, "Thank you, sir." We had a question from Vignesh.
Okay.
Sorry, Zaman. So Zaman is asking, does the data that we get also contain crypto balance along with addresses?
Yeah, so it can. So Ethers.js, like I was using inside of the application, gives you a bunch of methods for accessing more information about like balances or anything else really that is available from that address. In our case, we were just using the address to create the account, but you can go through like the Ethers documentation and see like a whole list of things that you have access to. One of those is the crypto balance.
Right. All right. Vignesh, would you like to take over? I think you had a question, right?
Yeah, I had a question. So, like, which part of the app, which part of the app interacts with the blockchain?
So basically, what's interacting with the blockchain right now is your MetaMask and your the Ethers JS. So in this implementation, I did not create like my own smart contract or like create any type of I guess like blockchain functionality. All I really did was grab the user's address that exists on the blockchain and make sure that I can create an account with it.
Okay, so
But
like,
yeah, go ahead.
does MetaMask and Ethers interact with each other?
Yes. So you can use Ethers to interact with the blockchain, connect to smart contracts whenever you want.
That's pretty much it. Thank you, Rahat, for guiding blockchain developers and patiently let us know their queries. We look forward to partnering with you again.
Yeah, awesome. It was awesome to do this.
Uh, Thank you so much, Rahat. I think this was super cool. So, yeah, this was really nice speaking with you. And yeah, personally, I learned a lot. And yeah, Zaman acknowledges the same. So yeah,
Awesome.
of course, you can always stay connected with the community and vice versa. With in case there are any sessions, any questions, you can always feel free to go along. So yeah, cool. So I guess Vignesh was
No, I think I'm done actually. I think I'm done.
all right. Cool then. Thank you so
Cool.
much, Rahat, and
Yeah.
I guess we can stay connected on Discord. So yeah, feel free to text. If there are any questions, feel free to text. Rahat on Discord, and I think you'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, definitely will.
All right. Thank you so much,
All right.
Rahat. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. All right. So thanks to everyone for joining in for the summit. So before we wrap up, just wanted to bring something up real quick. Give me a second. Give me a second. Let me bring this up. All right. So thanks to everyone for joining in. I think this was a uber cool session that we've done here so far. And yeah, firstly, before I really hope that you enjoy the summit and you learned a lot about blockchain, crypto, DeFi, DAOs, NFTs with the help of our wonderful speakers. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank our benefactor, Cello, and the folks at Cello, Daniel, Jason, Josh, and Co, for collaborating with us over the summit and the giveaway. We really hope to bring Cello's mission of making blockchain for everyone a step closer through our future events as well. Check out more about Cello through the link in chat. So I'll just quickly drop the link for Cello in chat. Second, I just want to acknowledge all of our speakers, in the order of their sessions: Jason, Vijay, Pranav, Josh, Elio, Connor, Dheeraj, Vanessa, Srinivas, and Rahat for taking their time out of their day or night to deliver some super insightful talks to us. Third, and I'd like to thank all of our partners, so it's CSC Association and IIT Warangal, and IIT Calicut, and Crypto and ITT for closely working with us in organizing the summit and ensuring that this event reaches the relevant people. Lastly, and most importantly, I want to thank you for the attendee watching our live stream, for attending throughout our 11 sessions. We truly believe you would have upskilled yourself by attending the keynotes, masterclasses, and the live code alongs. So yeah, we really hope you enjoy the summit as well. And we'd love to hear from you about how yeah, the session was. So a couple of quick announcements as I close the session. So first is that about the giveaway. So we'll be releasing our giveaway form really soon. So if you attended the sessions, at least most of them, so you should be all set to receive your crypto. Please do keep an eye out on our giveaway channel for Discord. We will also be, and second is we'll also be sending a copies of the recordings that you can stream, so that you can revisit the sessions again anytime. So yeah, thank you so much, and stay connected on Discord for our upcoming events. And yeah, you could be we could be up to something exciting. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Bye bye.